Well, welcome back to our third episode in the introductory website tour. Let's continue where we left off. Okay, now where we left off, it said for us to go to the Student Support Center, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll click on Student Support Center right there, and you see some information about the handouts and various pages and technical requirements, and a lovely image of some children at the beach. Just so happens those are my grandchildren, so don't say anything ugly. All right, over here I see a handouts page. Let's take a look at that one. It's got some final exam schedules and so on. This is the spring schedule, the spring information for the traditional classes. You may or may not see something different out there. I see the facilitator's guidelines telling you about the schedule and how the facilitator will be checking and communicating with you, and you will want to read that. You will certainly want to read that. Then you see the books for sale page, and these are students from the spring semester who have indicated that they would like to sell their textbook. We've had a lot of communication between us about that. And over here is outtakes. That is silly stuff. You don't have to watch that. It's not required. If you'd like to, knock yourself out. I have no problem with that. All right, let's go back to the Student Support Center page. And there's our technical requirements and so forth. And let's go back now to the microcomputer applications main page. And there we are. Now, what's next on our agenda? Oh, by the way, under that Student Support Center, and I didn't actually talk to you about that. Let's go take a look again real quick. Student Support Center. Take a look under handouts. And up here at the top, you see the University of Mobile's online netiquette guide. I would encourage you to go over that because you will be communicating with people on our website, and you don't want to offend anybody, and you want to make sure that everything that you do is well received, and you have to be really careful when communicating over the internet. Okay? All right, let's close that and go back to our microcomputer applications page. Next we see, looking at our sheet, it says to go to, let's see, we finished the Student Support Center. And it says go to Module 1, Welcome Hardware and Software. Okay, so Module 1. Scroll down here at the bottom on the left-hand side. There's Module 1. And if I take a look at Module 1, I see that there are 3 other subsections right here beneath Module 1. There's Hardware, Software and Binary, and the Internet. Now I'll tell you up front that Hardware represents that first learning objective. Software and binary along with the internet represents the second learning objective. So right here in these 3 subsections are 30% of your grade. All right, we'll start by clicking on the hardware subsection. And you see that it has a hardware checklist at the top. Now this is a set of instructions of what we're going to have to do well in this particular section. Next comes a handout. If there are any handouts necessary to complete this particular unit, they will appear right here. Some of the units have multiple handouts. Some of them have none. You just have to look. Down below there are a series of lectures on hardware. Now this series of lectures would be the same thing that the traditional classes would hear in class, okay? So you should watch each of these lectures, and then when you're done, down below that, you'll see that, there's an additional video right here of Richard Feynman, a brilliant physicist and it's totally optional. I found the man to be a fascinating character, and I would highly recommend that you watch the video. Down below that is the hardware end of chapter quiz, and this is a quiz that you would go to take in our coursework session, and there's probably a link out here to it. There it is. And you would go to that and take the quiz, and that would be for the material that you saw in these 3 videos, okay? And if you want to, you can go back. The advantages to having these videos is that one of the advantages of having these videos is that you can go back and replay them when you get ready to prepare for your test, your end of chapter quiz. So that you'll find there. Now in this particular unit, I see a section that says hardware paper. Well, basically you're not going to be writing a paper in this particular unit. You'll be writing a paper when we get to the word processing module. However, that paper that you'll be writing will be based upon information that you found in this unit. So your assignment in this particular part is to create an outline of the paper that you will be writing later on. Just the outline, not the paper. In addition to that, you will be coming up with finding and documenting the sources that you'll be using for your paper. All right? And that's important because in higher education or any kind of official publication, you have to cite all the sources that you used in the paper, and there are at least 3 required for this one. So you'll have to go online and find you some other sources, or go to the library, wherever you want to go, and find you other sources that will support the topic of this paper. So that's here in this part, because this paper is on secondary storage devices, you were assigned the task of creating an outline that you'll be using. Okay? Now that would complete the hardware module, hardware unit of this module 1. So I'm going to click back up here on this module 1, and that was hardware. And like I said, in your learning objectives, the hardware one is module is your first learning objective. Now here we see software and binary. All right, now if I look, I see that there's a checklist here as well. There's some handouts here as well. There's a series of videos for you to use to look at as well. And then there is a quiz at the end of the unit. And so you would simply make sure you look over this checklist and follow through with completing that task. Go back up here to module 1 again, and I see there's another series on internet. And there is, once again, a checklist that you'll find right here, some handouts that you can use, and then there's some other videos for you, some of which are optional, some of which are lecture. This is lecture you see right here. This is Dr. Leonard Kleinrock, who was the inventor of packet switching, which is used for the internet, and he also was involved with the development of the very first router. Fascinating guy. He's a professor now at the University of California, Los Angeles, and we got these videos courtesy of their posting to the YouTube. And then I see down here some more lectures, and here's some more videos of Dr. Kleinrock, and then in the end you will see a link to the quiz on the internet at the end of the chapter. And looking at your module 1, you see that we have hardware, software, and binary, and the internet. They're all pretty much configured the same way. But remember our discussion earlier in this series of lectures, or this series of introductory tour, about the idea of following instructions, because they are not the same. And so you always want to read the instructions at each one. Go back up here. I'm looking back at my sheet again. And I see on my sheet that it talks about going down to module 2. So let's go back to let's go back up here to microcomputer applications. And look over here on the side. Here's module 2, computer revolution. I'll select that one. and I see that there are 5 subsections in this one. The last 2 subsections you may not see. They were optional, good information, but the required subsections are History 1, 2, and 3. Uh, it will be up to your course facilitator or your professor to determine whether or not he or she wants to use History 4 and 5. What I found from teaching this class for several years is that we have a time issue, and I had to cut some things out, and this is actually where I chose to cut them out. You see a little introduction about the history of computer, and then you see a good graphic over there. This was done by Mr. Stephen Carey, one of the natural science professors at the University of Mobile. He's a very talented photographer. Let's click on History 1. And when you get there, you see, son of a gun, there's a checklist again. There's some handouts again. And then you see some videos here. This video at the top is a video from an documentary series that took place in 1990. It's excellent. It is absolutely excellent. The problem with this video, it's a 55-minute typical documentary video from television and 55 minutes long. If you try to watch it from here, MyUM is going to time out, and you'll have to start it back up and go back in and do it. And basically, you can watch that video, and I'd encourage you to do that because it is a very good video. But down below here are lecture videos that I created that are actually based upon that documentary. I found it to be so good that I actually wrote and created a set of videos in kind of pulling out some of the information that I wanted to get from the video series. So you can watch that. I would suggest you do if you find you have the time, but you know for certain you're going to want to watch these because there's where the meat of your quiz comes from, and you see that down at the bottom. Now if I come back over here at the top and click on Module 2 again, and I'll look and I see History 2, I click that. And once again, checklist. Once again, the second in that video series from that lecture, from that documentary. And then you see the lectures that I created for this material, and then the end of chapter quiz. Okay, these things are all similar. I'm not going to go back over them. I want to suggest to you, though, for certain, that when the time comes, you make sure you read all of the instructions. Now our instructions tell us to go to the Windows section, Module 3, so I'll click on that. And here you have things straight out of our textbook. Now this is the first time we actually get into that textbook that's required for the course. This is where we start using that textbook. Now this series right here is based upon Windows 8, not Windows 10 that many of you have, and so the instructions in the book are instructions for a Windows 8 machine. However, you can accomplish the same thing in Windows 10. There's some slight differences. We're going to make a valiant attempt at getting this done because of the similarity between them. All right, let's go back up here to the applications, and our sheet tells us to go to Module 4, which is Microsoft Word, and this is based upon Word 2013. And you see that we have, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units in this section. Now the way these units are configured is all of the A's. Well, in your textbook in each chapter has an A and a B exercise. An A and a B exercise. And you're to do the A exercise. And when you do the A exercise, I'm going to take a look at them And if it looks like you were pretty close and you did the stuff that it was said to do, I'm not going to be that strict about grading it. But the B exercise, by that time you've had one experience in this particular area of study, and now I'm expecting you to really do a good job in the B exercise. And what you'll find is a rubric in each of these coursework assignments for that B exercise that tells you exactly what I'm going to be looking for and how I'm going to be grading it. And I'll be grading those B's much more closely than I do the A's. Okay? So I'm expecting all 100s on the A's, but I really think I'd be optimistic to expect that on the B's. But you do have to work at it. And frankly, folks, this isn't hard. I mean, the textbook walks you through all of these things step by step. The advantage to the A exercise, and the reason I don't grade it quite so severely, is that when it tells you to do something in the A exercise, it talks you step by step. Click on this button, watch what this happens, choose that option, make this change, and it's point by point, step by step, it's walking you through the whole thing. The B exercise, it will say go boldface it, or go apply this feature to the document. The same thing that you may have done in the earlier ones, but this time it doesn't tell you step by step how to do it. It tells you to go do it. It expects you to have learned how to do it the first time, and if nothing else, learn how to find where it is the next time. Okay? So it's a little bit trickier, and I want you to understand something, folks. You should be able to burn through modules 1 and 2 pretty quickly. I'm not going to go through all the rest of these modules. I think that's enough for this tour because they're all very similar in their configuration. I think at this point you know how to read the instructions and you'll know how to follow those instructions. But I want you to understand that the time-consuming part, I believe you're going to find to be the applications in modules 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so you need to burn your way through modules 1 and 2 as fast as you possibly can so that you have plenty of time to complete these others. Module 1 and 2 is a lecture with some questions that you have to answer. It's not difficult for you to do, but the rest of them, when you get into applications, there's work to do there, and it takes time to do it. I would suggest to you that when we do this stuff in class, we usually do the A exercise in class, and then the student has the B exercise, and I'm talking about the traditional classes now. The student has the B exercise for homework. And in a traditional class that's about 15 weeks long, we do the A exercise in one class day, maybe 1.5. In other words, an hour to an hour and a half it takes us to do it. And the B exercise, the student has a week to accomplish it. But that's because in a traditional program, a student's taking several courses, not just 1 or 2. It's taking 4, 5, or 6. And so their time is being spread across a number of different courses. And so we do the 1A in class, and then they have the B, and they have 1 week to accomplish it. In the case of the online students, we're under a lot tougher time schedule. And I would suggest to you that you ought to be able to do the A one night and the B the next night and move right on. Okay? Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to point out to you that I am available, or your facilitator will be available. And so you should be sure to stay in touch with us to make sure that if you're having a problem that we can solve it for you. I believe that'll suffice us for our tour. Why don't we stop? And you are ready to proceed. Your assignment for the first night will be posted very soon. See you online or in class.